Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, some drill press hold downs. Well, a little while ago on the show, I showed you guys how to make this, and that would be my drill press table. And at the time, I showed you my commercially purchased hold downs for that table, and one of the viewers asked below, would it be possible to show how to make shop-made ones? And that's what we're going to do today. It all starts off at the bench with some 1/4 inch MDF because we're going to want to make a template on how to cut this out. I'm assuming that we're going to make more than one, and we don't want to do all the layout measuring more than once. So let's head over to the bench and start the layout of this project. Well, I've had comments on other show that the marking of the templates were difficult to see. So what I've done is I've used some spray adhesive and attached a piece of white paper to some 1/4 inch MDF. Now this MDF is 8 3/4 of an inch long, and this is going to be the final length of our hold down. But we need to do a little bit of layout first. And what we're going to do is we're going to lay this out so that we have a section of it that is 1.5 inches wide. So we're going to place some marks here 1/2 inch apart and make it so that it is 1.5 inches wide section. Just like that, and we have 3 sections here now that are 1/2 inch wide, totaling 1.5 inches. Now the next mark that we want to place will be a mark at 2 1/4 inches in from one end. It doesn't matter which one. Then we need another 1/2 inch mark right there, just like that. And then from that mark across should be 6 inches. And we are at 6 inches there. So we'll just use our square and mark these marks through our 1.5 inch section. Well, essentially now what we need to do is from this middle section right here, we're going to place a line from the mark at 2 1/4 down to our first 1/2 inch mark. We're going to place a line from our 2 1/4 down to our lower 1/2 inch mark, if you can see that. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side. So we will just mark this out just like this. From this 1/2 inch mark here, all the way down to that far corner, and from this 1/2 inch mark all the way down to this far corner. I'm going to use a circle template, and it doesn't really matter what size of circle. We're just going to round this off here just to make it a little nicer. I'm not even sure what size I'm going to use here. This one looks good. I like this one. And we're just going to round that off to make it a little nicer. And on these corners now, we don't want these sharp, crisp edges because by having that, it will or can leave dents in our project. So I'm going to use a circle here now that's a little larger or a little wider than this. And we're going to just draw a circle. I'll tell you the size in just a second once I figure it out. We're flying by the seat of our pants here, boys. It looks like a 9/16 will be perfect for this. So we're just going to line up the 9/16 circle and we're going to round off this edge and bring it around to there. So we kind of have like a little ball at the end. And we'll do the same thing on the other side using the 9/16 circle template. Line up with the top edge and the bottom edge there. We're going to round it off just like that. Now at this point in time, this is pretty much the side view template for what we need for our hold downs. So I'm going to take this over to the scroll saw and I'm going to cut this out. Now we're not going to do this sharp corner here. This will get rounded just a little bit, just like that. But let me go cut this out and show you what we end up with. With your template cut out, you should have something that looks like this. Now, if you want, you can cut it out as an interior cut and have it as an actual template. This is just something to trace to give you an idea, and actually the profile of it isn't an exact science. But now that you have your piece that you can trace, you need to choose your stock. And what we're going to use for this is a piece of stock that's 1.5 inches by 1.25 inches by 8 3/4 inches long. Now you'd probably want to use something like maple, walnut, oak, something that's a little harder. I've got a piece of poplar here because that's what was on the shelf and that's what I'm going to use. How long it's going to last or stand up, I don't know. But this is strictly for demonstration purposes. So let's head over to the bench and I'll show you how to do the layout of this, and then we're going to get into cutting the clamp. Well, we're looking at our poplar blank with the 1.25 inch side facing up. And we need to place some of the same marks that we placed before, and that will be a mark at 2.25 and then another 1/2 inch beyond that, which of course is 2 3/4. And what this is going to be is an area that we need to have a hole drilled, and it's going to be an elongated hole that will be 3 inches in diameter. So we need to place that in the center of our 1.25 inch side. So 1.25 inch divided by 2 is 5/8, and we'll place that mark. We're going to do this on the drill press, and I'll show you that in just a bit. But now we're just going to release our stock, rotate it 90 degrees, and we need to mark out our template. So we're just going to line up our 2 ends at the bottom here. And once we get it lined up to our satisfaction, we'll use our pencil and just trace it out. And that should give you something like this. Now, how are we going to cut this? Well, before we cut it, we're going to take it over to the drill press, install a 3/8 diameter bit, and we're going to take care of this hole here. All right, so here we are at the drill press, and what we want to do, and it's not really rocket science here, it's not exact, you don't have to be right on the money, but we're going to line up our drill bits so that the edge of our hole kind of lines up with the edge of our line that we drew there on the horizontal surface. And we're going to drill a through hole on this one plane of our 1.25 by 1.5 inch piece. And we'll just dump the chips here. And what we want to do now is we want to drill one just on the other side. Now, if you're having problems and you can't get it to drill just right, you can make it a little longer. It really doesn't matter. So we're going to drill the second hole, and once we get that done, we're going to take it over to the scroll saw and we're going to clean up the edges of it. Now, there are many different ways that you could cut out the initial shape, and you don't even really need a scroll saw to do this next step. You can just use a file or a coping saw or whatever you want. But I have a scroll saw and I like using it, so that's what I'm going to do. We have the 2 holes here. They're kind of woogity there in the middle where they have that piece that juts out. So I've got a number 7 reverse tooth blade installed here, and I'm just going to clean that part off. And that is basically that section done. If you wanted to, you could put a little bit of sandpaper on a piece of 1/4-inch dowel and sand the inside of that if you'd like. But I'm going to see how it turns out in the end, because now it's time to cut our side profile. And with that same number 7 reverse tooth bit, cutting through 1.25 inch material here should not be a problem for this. So before you cut it, you just want to make sure that you check your blade for square. So get that blade checked for square, and then we're going to cut out this profile that we've drawn on here. Well, some of you out there may not have a scroll saw, and that's okay. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you the method with the bandsaw. And we're using a 3/16 blade with a 10 tooth per inch count. And you may have noticed when I scrolled this that I started cutting here and then I stopped and I cut off this small corner. Now the reason for that is, as I was cutting, I realized that if I cut off these corners last, it leaves very little support, and there's the potential of rocking back and forth. So I wanted to keep as much of this support as possible while cutting. So enough talking. Let's get this cut out here, and I'll show you how that's going to work out.
Well, at this point in time, you'll want to give everything a good sanding.
Sand everything up. With the sanding done, all we need at this point is some T-bolts. And these are 3.5 inches long. We're just going to place them up through the hole, 1/4 inch washer over top of the hole, and then a jig knob. Now you can use a commercial jig knob or a shop-made one like the ones we made here on the show not too long ago. I'm actually, I'll put the link down below for those that missed that show in case you want to check it out and learn how to make those. And that, boys and girls, is our hold downs done. So let's take them over to the drill press table and see how we use them. Well, here at the drill press table, let's just say that this is the piece that we need to drill. And this is just one of our offcuts from our project. So we just place our hold downs in place, get our jig knobs all tightened down there, just like this. And there is one clamp in place. And we'll just put a second one on there for a good measure. A little bit of debris there in our track. There we go. Just like this. Spin that down. And with that held in place, we should be able to drill this no problem. And you can see how well they held. Now, of course, you can use them in a different configuration too. If you have a larger piece, you just spin them around, and then this section here, the smaller arm, becomes your hold down for a smaller piece. This here is for larger pieces. If you need to clamp something that's much thicker, you have that ability. And there you go. Shop-made hold downs. And there you have it. Shop-made hold downs for your drill press table. And guys, this project leaves a lot to the imagination. And what I mean by that is don't take it exactly the way I've drawn it out here. If these are too long for you, or they don't work for you, or you want to modify or adjust, feel free to do it. Use different materials, different methods. If you don't have a bandsaw, if you don't have a scroll saw, don't worry about it. Use a coping saw. Heck, use a sander. Use use a spoke shave, use whatever you've got. It's not imperative that you use the same tools, the same methods, or even the same shape that I did. This show is to give you an idea of how they're made and how you can make your own. So don't just limit it to what I've shown you here. Guys, this show has been a lot of fun. This project has been a lot of fun, and those hold downs are going to get plenty of use here on the drill press table. Now, guys, this is one of those projects that came by viewer request, and that's what makes it a little extra special, because it's now something that you have asked for instead of just something that I'm pushing your way. So don't be shy, guys. Drop a comment below and give me a comment or a request for a show idea. It doesn't mean that I'm going to do them all. It just means that it's going to add more to my arsenal of show ideas as to what projects to make and what to film. Guys, thanks so much for tuning into the program. Thank you for the suggestion on asking for the clamps. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope that you're going to like and subscribe and click that bell for future notifications of the program. And guys, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.